Good evening, everyone. As always, we begin by acknowledging that the Weisman Art Museum stands on the traditional and contemporary land of the Dakota people. We aspire to honor and respect the Indigenous peoples past, present, and future by incorporating Indigenous knowledge in our work and establishing meaningful reciprocal relationships with the carriers of Indigenous knowledge and with communities. We also acknowledge that the land acknowledgement is merely the first step in a long and complex process of reconciling with the colonial past and present of our institution. I would like to state our commitment to this process. I am Boris Zuckerman. I am the Cindy and J. Ihlenfeld Curator for Creative Collaboration at the Weisman Art Museum. I curate the program of the Target Studio for Creative Collaboration, where we develop artist-led projects that cross disciplines, institutions, sectors, communities, cultures, and geographies. I am grateful today to my colleagues at the Weisman Art Museum for supporting the program for creative collaboration and for making this event happen. This event is organized by the Just Education Initiative of the University of Minnesota and by, excuse me, by the Art from the Inside. On the Just Education side, I want to thank Ingrid Nuttall, who is going to be moderating today's panel, for pushing this through and for the leadership. Ingrid will take the mic from me in a minute. I just want to mention that the artworks created by incarcerated artists are currently on display in the Weisman Art Museum, and they will be on display until Sunday. Please come visit and meet people behind this wonderful project. A little bit of housekeeping. We have live ASL interpretation. So I would like to also take this opportunity and thank Thailand and Jasmine, our interpreters today. We also have live transcription going on, but you need to turn it on to see it if you like. You need to select Show Subtitles in the drop-down menu under the Live Transcription tab at the bottom of the screen. You can submit your questions to the panelists as we go along, even in the middle of the presentation, through the Q&A function of the webinar. And finally, I would like to say a few words about the context of this event in kind of the larger scheme of things at the Weisman Art Museum. In year 2018, which was, well, almost 4 years ago now, we hosted a project by the artist Danny McCarthy Clifford that was dedicated to censorship in prisons. And the result of that project was collaborative of artists and researchers and university staff who were all interested in figuring out what the university can do to address the effects of mass incarceration in Minnesota. And this is how the Just Education Initiative was born. But there was also another spin-off of that Danny's project, and that is a collaboration with the nonprofit We're All Criminals. We're currently working with We're All Criminals on a new exhibition that will open in spring 23, about a year from now, that will have new works created by incarcerated artists in collaboration with artists in the Twin Cities. So a year from now, you're all invited to see that. And now I would like to give the microphone away to Ingrid. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Boris. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. As Boris said, my name is Nuttall, and I work at the University of Minnesota in the Office of the Registrar, and I'm the co-founder of the Just Education Collaborative, as Boris mentioned, a group funded through the Institute for Advanced Study. And the goal of our collaboration is to identify what the University of Minnesota as a major and influential academic institution can do to address the crisis of the impact of incarceration in the state. Our connection with Art from the Inside began 2 years ago when I was introduced to Antonio and Jessica Espinosa from a mutual contact. And we began to talk about opportunities to connect art from the inside and their vision of creating space for incarcerated artists, and exploring like how that could connect with what our goals are with just education. So through that partnership, we're so excited to bring you the opportunity to see Art from the Inside exhibit Transformation, which is the latest curation of work from artists at Stillwater and Shakopee correctional facilities. So if anything, please visit the Weisman Art now through Sunday, March 27th to check out the art. It is fantastic. And of course, I'm very grateful to bring you the opportunity to connect with artists Ricardo Dominguez and Jennifer Marx this evening, as well as Elaine Auyoung and Antonio Espinosa. I'm going to let each of our panelists introduce themselves before we get started. So in the following order, Antonio, Jen, Ricardo, and Elaine, welcome to the conversation. Can you please introduce yourselves?
Hello, my name is Antonio Espinosa, and I am so grateful for this opportunity to be a part of this awesome display of art and being welcomed by the Weisman Museum, like how you had, excuse me, like how you guys have accepted us. I'm the founder of Art from the Inside, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jen. I'm Jen Marx. I was incarcerated at Shakopee Women's Institution Prison. I was there for 65 months. I'm finishing out on a work release program. I have about 2 months left here, and I'm currently working at Tech Dump as an HR payroll specialist.
Hello, my name is Ricardo Dominguez. I am formerly incarcerated.
Ricardo, you muted.
Unmuted. You got me? All right. Yes, I was a formerly incarcerated artist in Stillwater, and yeah, I just learned how to paint in there and just hone my skill. And it's just been an honor to be here and part of the program, Art from the Inside. Everything that they've done for me and Jen in these last few months has just been phenomenal, and I'm just honored to be here.
Hi, I'm Elaine Auyoung. I'm a professor in the English department representing the University of Minnesota. And one of my research interests is what makes the arts special and how do they create powerful experiences. And this fall, I taught a grad course on moral action and the arts. And Ingrid was an exceptional and inspiring member of that course. And that's how I first learned about art from the inside.
Thank you, everybody. And audience, before we begin our conversation, we're going to start with a brief excerpt from Art from the Inside documentary Transformation to provide context to the project and its origins. The full documentary is available on their website. So if you Google Art from the Inside, you will get there, and it is on the homepage. And hopefully we won't have any technology issues. I'll just need a moment while I share my screen and sound with all of you. So 1 minute.
I came in here as a kid. I was pretty young. I was still a teenager. So I still had a lot of developing to do, a lot of maturing to do. And this is a difficult place for someone that young to grow up in, any teenager.
My life got derailed when I was a kid, and I made a lot of bad choices.
Particularly young guys coming in here, they just feel so vulnerable. They got to keep it all tight wrapped in and not show any vulnerabilities. And so I silo just the way that I think about all these silos all over.
I couldn't grasp it. I couldn't grasp that reality at 16. I just stayed numb.
you start to lose bits of, I guess, just humanity. You start to just go into yourself. You just go further and further and further into yourself, and that can be bad sometimes, especially in a place of isolation.
As I see it, then there's a lot of anger, because anger is the kind of go-to cover-up for it, so you can't express, hey, I'm really worried about my mom, or I'm really sad I'm here, or I really regret. And so it just all becomes anger that comes exploding outwards.
The pain that you've been through kind of shapes how you deal with things, right?
It becomes a battle to maintain that humanity of yourself. So how do you find identity?
Life doesn't stop just because you're locked up. And I realized that hurt people hurt people. Before I was the editor at the Prison Mirror, I was a swamper in the units, and so I would be in the units, and so I would be having conversations, and Officer Espinosa would come into the block and get right into our conversations. Hey, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing?
I'm a Hispanic man from the South Bronx, New York City. I moved out here in 2002 for this job right after 9/11 at Stillwater Prison. And I've been there for 19 years now.
And he just started engaging with us.
And I've been asked, why am I a guard? And I said, because I like to help people.
The guys I'd be talking to, they were short timers, so I'd be like, what are you doing when you get out? And so as soon as he'd like, yeah, what are you gonna do? You gotta be, you can take advantage of all these opportunities out here, and he gets really passionate, he gets really going.
Wow, my thoughts about prison was locking people up and, it's just isolation, locking people up, responding to altercations, fights, that's what I had envisioned in my mind, what I seen on TV, Part of it's true and the other part is not true. I do see something different. I believe that people can transform from who they were to where they want to be and where they want to go in life. That transformation is possible.
Why do you believe that?
Because I'm transformed. I do see that people do change. Within the 19 years I've been there, I've seen people transform in front of me. Like they're different people. And I think that if given the opportunity to give them an opportunity to go back into society, I know that I wouldn't ever see them again. July of 18, 2 years ago, I was watching TV and the news came up that a guard in Stillwater Prison was fatally wounded.
Look inside the investigation of a deadly attack on a corrections officer.
An inmate murdered at the Stillwater Prison.
It was my friend Gam, and I couldn't believe it. People were quitting, leaving the job the next day, There was more isolation, there was more confinement. They were trying to figure out how to come back from this situation. And ever since that moment that happened, that place hasn't been the same, it's been like us against them mentality again, but stronger. It's been a rough road. I started thinking to myself, what can I do to bring something positive in this place? What can I do?
Thank you, everyone. So to moving into that question, what can I do? Antonio, I think I have the first question for you. Talked about in that clip how this experience changed you and motivated you to action. So what made you decide that this was going to be the avenue change from you? Why art?
Well, first of all, art is a healing it's a healing substance. It's something that everyone likes to look at and create, you know. And throughout the time that I worked there at Stillwater, doing my rounds and seeing these men create all these different pieces of art and beading and everything, I was like, wow, you know, these guys actually do have talent. And it was something that I could use to start a conversation, because everyone likes art. So giving people the opportunity to express themselves through their art and giving them the opportunity to express themselves and give them a platform to talk about themselves and to show their excitement about what they do. It was one of the focus that I had, and the other focus was to honor my friend Steph. You know, try to create some sort of healing in that place and try to bring some change in there. And change is so important, and it's important right now in the Department of Corrections for everyone. So art is, for me, art is just the vehicle for the conversation, uncomfortable conversations of incarceration.
Thanks, Antonio. And Jennifer, in your biography that is shared on the website for this event and in the promotion, you talked about how you used art in prison as a hustle, so that you had funds to use in the canteen and later as a form of healing. And I'm really interested in hearing more about how art has evolved for you as a practice and what it's serving in your life. So how does your evolution as an artist reflect or even shape your life journey?
Yeah, okay, so when I first got to Shakopee, I didn't have any help. I didn't really have anybody at all. You learn really quick who your friends are when you get locked up. You really don't have anybody. You kind of just become the forgotten. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And so here I am sitting alone at a table with a notebook and a number 2 pencil, and I'm drawing graffiti art, I'm drawing names, and I have people approaching me like, wow, you're really good. And so I learned really quick how to make canteen, how to get coffee. And that got me through a lot of tough times in prison, is coffee. So I started just drawing. I would draw Christmas cards, birthday cards, etc. And then I went to portraits, and I grew. I learned that I'm really, really good at still life. I'm really, really good at looking at an image and drawing it identically to what it was. And I didn't know I had that capability before. So I gradually went from hustling to earning more money at my jobs, at my job per se in prison, and not really needing the money as much, then doing it for fun, and then learning that I could take drawing and put my pain on paper. We had a trauma class in PFA, and my life coach, my trauma coach, she taught us to think of a traumatizing experience, put it on paper, a moment in that traumatizing experience, put it on paper, and then after we've finished drawing it, we ripped it up, and she took all of my classmates' images, that ripped up images, took that home and burnt it. After a while, I was just drawing every time I had a hard time, every time I was stuck inside my head, every time I needed to get away from the noise, I would put my music in and I would start to draw. And it just helped me escape. It helped me escape all the pain I was feeling on the inside. It helped me forget that I was alone. It helped me forget that I was inside the prison walls and I couldn't get out. It lifted me to a different level. So I was putting my pain on this paper and I was giving it away. I didn't keep a single thing I drew. I was sending it to my children. I was sending it out to friends, family, or I was giving it away to people inside the prison. And they were finding it as beautiful pieces of art. They were finding it remarkable and astonishing, and the look on their faces when they see your art is just priceless. That's my favorite part, is when they look at it. It makes you feel, I don't know, it's undescribable. Watching your pain means so much to people. It's pretty cool feeling. So, and now I'm just beginning to draw again, and I'm not in as much pain anymore. And I more or less use it. I still put my music in my ears, and I more or less just use it as a form of meditation. It's a form to center myself, to reach God on a higher level. I'm a very spiritual person. I go to church every Sunday, and when I can't be at church, I find a way to talk to God through art.
Jennifer, thank you. And Ricardo, I think, like, please speak to any of the same kind of questions or things that I asked Jennifer. I have another question for you too. In a different interview with you, I noted that sort of like you're commenting on the visibility, the art that you saw on the west side of St. Paul when you were growing up. And then I look at your work, The Jazz Player, which was rolling at the beginning of this, and it reminds me of some of the really vibrant art I've seen around Cesar Chavez Street. I'm wondering if you could talk about how your exposure to art influenced part of your development as an artist, or again, speak to any of the same question that I asked.
Yes, most definitely. And thank you for having me. Art in my neighborhood was really everything, because my mother was really close to the Carlos Menchaca, one of the most known painters from the West Side. He did about 80% of the paintings and murals on the West Side, or had some involvement in it. So growing up and going to his studio and watching him paint Aztec stuff, real Mexican spiritual or heritage stuff, it kind of left a mark on me. So when I got older and I started experiencing graffiti and stuff like that, that's how I started with art, graffiti in the bathroom at high school. And yeah, it just went on from there. And then I really found my passion when I got to prison, because I didn't have nothing but time to hone my craft. And it kind of started with my kids, though. It really did start with my kids, doing stuff for the holidays, for them, for their birthdays. I would send them cards, just like Jennifer was talking about. And then I started doing paintings, and they started getting really big. And my kids loved it. But while in that process, everybody else in the prison, the guards included, they would see me doing these paintings when they walked by my room, and I'd be jamming out for hours and just going crazy. And then I started to notice people like my work. So that kind of inspired me. It inspired me to do better work, and just be more creative, and just be more open-minded about where this art could take me in my life. And right now, it's just been so amazing. This whole experience has just been awesome. And I would like to thank Antonio, Jessica, and all the Art from the Inside team, just for giving us this platform and this opportunity to talk about our story and being incarcerated and coming home now and starting life over in the streets. It's been a little rough. I did 9 years in prison, and getting out into the streets, coming to a new state where I don't know anybody, it's been a little challenging, but I embrace the challenge because I don't want to go back to prison. I'm not going back to prison. And I got to do this art stuff, and I'm gonna put my energy into this art, and let's do it and see what happens.
Thanks, Ricardo. Elaine, your research has touched on what the strengths are of art to change us and move us into action, and kind of building off of the question, what can I do? Art can stimulate that question, what can I do? So I'm wondering if you can talk to us about the possibilities of art to change us. You're muted.
I knew that was happening. So I wanted to start by touching on some of the things that Jennifer and Ricardo have already described in their own relationship to art, because it's obviously changed their lives in a really profound way. And and I think it's almost exactly what Jennifer said, how art can create its own context. So it does become you and the notebook or piece of paper or canvas, and you can just escape whatever you're experiencing in your physical surroundings to become totally absorbed in this activity that is stimulating and engaging you, but is also something that is giving you agency and control. And then you can be really immersed by and absorbed in art so that you forget your surroundings or lose track of time. And something that I want to stress is this is a different role that you're occupying. So it's not a social interaction where someone else has put a role on you and you have to respond. It's just you're kind of occupying a free space. And then when you give the work of art to someone else, they can see that you've used that free space to express a side of you that you may not actually feel free to express to them in a face-to-face interaction or ordinary kind of social interaction. So I think it does open up this possibility to see different sides of yourself and then make that visible to a loved one or the community. So you learn about yourself, and also your family can see this side of you, and then the broader public as we're now able to see at the Weisman.
Thanks, Elaine. I'm gonna move on to asking some more questions and just pause here too to invite all of our audience members to go ahead and add questions into the Q&A at any time. I will be checking it, and I'm happy to read as well at any point. We do really want this to be a conversation, and so questions matter certainly as much, if not more than mine. So Antonio, kind of building off of this question, how can art change us? You said in your kind of first answer that art can help us have an uncomfortable conversation about incarceration. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Sort of what do you mean by that, and how have you seen this occur? Where have you seen that happen, and what has been the impact of that?
When I talk about art being uncomfortable, I mean the uncomfortable conversations of incarceration is where people don't want to know about the people who are locked up. And as a person that did 19 and a half years as a public servant, I saw that people need people, and people need uplifting, and people need to be acknowledged, and we need to show some love, and we need to show care for people if we want them to recover from their situation and learn from it, and how it could affect our community by showing some sort of healing, showing humanity within ourselves as human beings. We all make mistakes, and we all need that opportunity for redemption in our lives. So, you know, I'm also a person of faith, and my beliefs are that being that my friend his life was sacrificed, I didn't want to let this go by, just, you know, let it be, you know, it was a death, or, you know, I wanted to do something positive to show the incarcerated that they have worth, and to show the department and the people I used to work with that they have the ability to show compassion and show being the coach to people, so that we could all work together in a space where we can both learn from each other. You know what I'm saying? So that's the uncomfortable part of, you know, the conversation, because people don't, you have to give. If you want to see something to change, you have to be part of that change. You have to be change. And we all, you know, we all need to change. Not only the incarcerated, but those who work there, and our community needs to change. There's a paradigm shifting that has to happen within our community for us to all live together and in harmony. And I'm using art for that uncomfortable conversation. coming from these incarcerated people.
Thanks, Antonio. We do have a question in the Q&A that is really great that I want to actually throw out and invite any of the panelists to speak to, which is how can we get young people in the community where you may be from to learn your stories and be inspired by you? I applaud the amazing work that you're doing. How can people connect with you or with others who you know are either, I would also say, like Jennifer and Ricardo, obviously neither one of you are currently incarcerated, but there's plenty of artists who are. What are some opportunities for connection here? Where can that happen? Oh, sorry, Ricardo, mute yourself. Sorry.
Hello. All right. With that question, I think that just as a system, period, it's just so broken. It's not even funny. It's like America, we incarcerate more people than anybody in the world. It's a business. Let's just call it what it is. It's a business. So when you have a business and you don't offer the people in there, if you're doing it for rehabilitation and you're not offering rehabilitation, the system is going to be broken. You're going to have guys just revolving door, keep coming in and out. What I propose for the young guys in the streets to get involved with what we're doing right now, music. I think music will be a perfect avenue to shift that into getting kids off of the streets, getting kids, give them another opportunity to do something different, whether it be art, whether it be anything. Art can be anything you want it to be. And that's the thing about the position that we're in right now. It can be so fluid and so flexible. Art can be music, it could be painting, it could be drawing, it could be poetry, spoken word, it could be anything. But the opportunities do need to be created because the community is lacking that right now. I don't see any more boys and girls clubs like when I was growing up. We had teen centers when I was growing up. None of that is around anymore. I think kids need that opportunity to put their phones down and actually do something with their hands and create something. It'll be just a life-changing experience for most people, and they just got to give it a try, and we have to make that available for them.
Jen, did you want to speak to that too? Question?
I mean, I completely agree with Ricardo. Hands down.
Yes.
Antonio, what are some ways that if you had something to sort of offer that folks can get more connected, either with Ricardo, Jen, I can speak to them, but with these artists and with their work?
Well, I'm just starting with this project. It's been 2 years. I've been approached through the internet, through the exhibits, people asking questions about how can they participate and be a part of this movement that we're working on. There's always possibilities and opportunities. We have to be courageous enough to go to legislators and our leaders in our communities to try to fight for these opportunities for these incarcerated folks and our communities. It'd be great to see that happen instead of seeing kids picking up guns and shooting each other, instead of picking up a brush and creating art and learning how to be doing fellowship with each other and learning from their experience. We need a lot of work. Our leadership is poor, and we need to be more creative.
And we have another question specifically directed for both Jen and Ricardo. So from this point where you're at with experience, are either of you thinking about teaching art to others, teaching what you've learned either inside or out?
Go ahead, Jen.
Yes, I've actually thought about, I mean, I can't be a teacher because I'm a felon, but I can have a studio. I can teach adults, and I can eventually have my own studio. And I would love to have that someday. I would love to have an acrylic studio. I would love to branch out and just have like a corks and acrylics and have drink wine and be merry and just have fun with art someday. So eventually, yes, I'm going to.
Yeah, me for sure. I'm definitely gonna pursue that. As far as the kids, oh shoot. As far as the kids in the community, I think that, like, depending on where you're at, like in the inner cities, kids with art, I'm gonna stick with the music. I think that is so important. I think, especially in Stillwater Prison, I brought this up to Antonio as well. Music, getting music into prison and that being a form of art for the guys is just monumental, because not everybody can paint, not everybody can draw, but that right there is just so expressive and gives them an incentive to just do better and gives them something to look forward to. Yeah, out here I would definitely be totally down for that, teaching kids how to paint, how to spray paint, whatever. That'd be awesome. I would love to do that. Heck yeah.
There's a kind of a follow-up question to the first one, and Antonio, you might be positioned to answer this. So how can we as Department of Corrections employees make a better or more successful handoff to field or parole agents to help incarcerated people be more successful and supportive? And I think actually, certainly, Jen and Ricardo, your answers to that would be really valuable as well.
Boy, I'm sorry, can you just repeat that one more time, just a little bit?
I sure can. So how can Department of Corrections employees make a better or more successful handoff to field or parole agents to help incarcerated people be more successful and supportive? We actually kind of talked about this when we were planning for this discussion today. So I know that that Ricardo, Jenny, and Antonio might have something to say.
A good handoff, a good warm handoff to the parole officers who monitor these folks. You know, they're in the position of gearing them and giving them the opportunity to find jobs where they could be available for them. Some folks are not working, and they need to find a way to work with their clients and show them, like, be mentors to these folks instead of just monitoring people. And I think the same way that we could do that, the same way in the prison system, where we could be mentors to these individuals and show some sort of bonding. There's a gray line between all of that with, you know, having your communication with the incarcerated folks. You could do that in a way where, you know, you could be very effective and not have nothing going on, you know, funny business, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But I believe that we all are in the position of being creative in the way how we do our jobs every day and how we motivate people for better behavior. And that's what I've done when I was there, and I'm still doing it. I'm retired, you know. So I believe that if I could do it, other people could do it. And, you know, that's community. Community is everything. Community is gonna bring people together, and people will understand each other, and there will be harmony, and then we could move together towards the same way instead of being always fighting and having walls and you're the inmate and I'm the guard. I believe that we all should work together in learning from each other.
Jen and Ricardo, what do you think? What could be done to make a better handoff to help provide more support?
Definitely programming. Just, I know COVID had a lot to do with it these last few years, but when I got out of prison, there was no transitions. Transitions is a program in prison to help you literally transition to the streets. So that was shut down. No outside resources, didn't have a resume, didn't have nothing. They didn't even have an ID thing program set up. So everything is shut down right now. So that needs to definitely get back in rotation or order, because there's guys getting out of prison right now with just nothing. And it's messed up, because when you send a guy out there with no tools, he's gonna go get the old tools that he knows how to use. You know what I mean? So you got to have guys in here. Like when after the tragic incident in 2018 happened, they took the welding shop, which I was in. I was lucky to get my license. They took the welding shop, the machine shop. They took all these trade schools that were so beneficial to the men, and they're gone now. They just have all that equipment just sitting there. It's gone. So we need more programming in prison. Definitely. We need more college in there. We need more, just everything. Keep guys busy, keep them excited to get out of prison. You know what I mean? Because right now they're just sitting there, literally stuck in a box doing time. Nothing, really unproductive. It's sad, man. When I think about it, it really is sad. You know, and there is definitely stuff that needs to be done, and we do need more programming for the guys getting out, especially the long-term offenders. Like I said before, I didn't know how to use a computer when I got out. iPhone, I was lost. So stuff like that, little classes like that, the DOC and the caseworkers in the prison could definitely come up with a class or some programming or something for that. But I definitely see that there needs to be change, and there needs to be more effort on both parts, DOC and probation.
Jen, what do you think?
I have the same opinion. Programming is key. There's little to no programming in the women's prison either. There's no art classes. There's no little to no music. And it's once the COVID hit, there's nothing. There's no visitors allowed in the prison at all, not even church. We didn't have anything. But before that, there was still little to no programming. Also, I feel like medical is awful. The medical was bad before the COVID, but once the COVID came, medical got worse. I mean, we were in quarantine, and I had medical issues, and I had my heart complications, and they stuck a monitor on my heart and stuck me in my cell and came to check on me once a week. And I mean, I could have went into heart failure for all they would, and they just, it's sad. A person can die in prison, and you just feel like they don't care. That's a life that it makes you want to cry. It makes me want to cry. People die inside institutions too frequently, and it's just not noted. It's not on the news frequently enough. It needs to be stepped up. Medical needs to be stepped up inside institutions.
Definitely, I agree.
Thanks to all three of you. We have questions and some comments, and I'm going to share them. So one, it would be amazing to in the future develop a platform to bring these experiences to youth in the hopes of creating prevention or thoughts of different pathways and opportunities, which I think we talked about. And then a question, this is one I'm really excited to hear everyone speak to. So I teach art history at the U, and I'm struck by the disparity between what you have said about art's importance in your lives and my students' skepticism about whether it matters at all. Do you feel that disparity too? That art has you have a sense of art as being important, and I suppose other people feel that it's not as important. And then relatedly, what sort of arts training do you think incarcerated artists need, sort of moving beyond or building off of Ricardo's suggestion that music be taught in prison? So that first one, and also I'm interested, Elaine, in you kind of talking to this question, talking about the disparity between art's importance in lives and whether it matters at all.
I'll go. Okay, go ahead.
I believe that is very important. Art is when it comes down to art, food, and music, it's in our culture. Everyone has that in their lives, in their where they come from. You know, it's very important. Just by these exhibits that I've done with these men's and women's art, the community out here love the art, and they just love it. And the questions that I ask, well, then, if you love the art, how do you feel about the artist? You know what I'm saying? How you feel about the person behind the walls who did this. And, you know, a lot of people, it's kind of hard because, you know, you like the art and they have a lot of talent, but people want to see and give opportunities and hope that, you know, we're getting the proper information, the proper people to come in and teach. A lot of these folks are self-taught. They do their work in their cells or in their space. So, you know, they learn through their time in prison. So that's a little bit what I could say right now. I'll give it to Ricardo to clean it up.
The disparities between art and with his students and just the youth, I think everybody has the opportunity to create something in them. You just have to find it, and you have to try. You have to be open-minded. I mean, art has been such a valuable asset to me, and most of the guys in prison that are still in there, and some of them are never coming home, which breaks my heart because it's just, they have so much talent, and there's so many guys in there that they just yearn for that. They just yearn just for the acceptance from the public, because they've been condemned. In the public eye, when you're labeled as a felon, it's kind of like the scarlet letter, because we're marked for life. We can't vote. It's harder to get a place to rent. It's just, we have so many different hurdles to hop over, and art has a way of kind of, I think B said, it kind of softens the blow of being labeled as a felon, because now we have art and we have another skill and another trade that's positive. So even though we are felons and we did make mistakes, yeah, art kind of gives us a good light. It is a good light because it's a positive thing, and it's nothing bad. So the disparities between his students and youth, I mean, I'm going to stick to it. I think everybody has a creative piece in them. It doesn't matter if they could draw or whatever, because if you can sing and I can draw, then we're both artists, just different avenues. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Just to piggyback off of Dominguez's statements, even if you are a person that's going to be in prison for a long period of time, this project has given them a lot of hope, and it's given them a voice, and hopefully that having these kind of programs and these kind of activities in the system that would hopefully bring down the assaults and bring more creative thinking on both sides of the fence to continue to do something positive. So I do believe that people who are in prison can make a difference out in this world, because I can see it when I do these exhibits. I hear the community, how they talk about the art, so they are doing something good.
I just want to jump in and add a little bit of a response to Jane's question about the context of art in the university setting, because I think something that's really unique about the event that Ingrid has put together is that there's this convergence of voices from different backgrounds all in the same place, because often in a university context, we don't hear from people for whom art is a lifeline. And this is kind of the view of like the ordinary, like the role of art in an ordinary person's life. And I teach English. And so when I meet people randomly, they'll say, oh, I love reading, or I love books. And you're almost not allowed to say that in a university setting or a disciplinary approach to literature or art, because it has to be very serious, it has to be very complex, and you're approaching it in a very critical, interpretive way. And then what gets left out is kind of the view from below, where art may have a role in relation to trauma, or like a trauma-informed perspective on art. And this is not really something that is allowed in more institutional, like academic approaches to the arts, because that's seen as naive and we don't actually have a vocabulary for it. So I think it's really helpful and eye-opening to remember, like, what is it, how exhilarating it can be for someone who's incarcerated to be like, oh, today we get to do art, instead of something that Ricardo had said in a previous conversation, where it's just like, it's really boring when you don't have anything to do and nobody cares to give you this opportunity to do something different.
We have more questions coming up. One is, I think, kind of tying to this, how can more art programming be funded in prison? How can more art programs be in prison? Is a funding issue or an area? I mean, I think speaking to this a little bit, there's a little bit of both, right? There are some outside organizations that can develop relationships through the Department of Corrections to do things, which is actually what Antonio did from within his role, though now he is retired. But then there is also the Department of Corrections that can create this programming for people. Can you also say that?
Well, I'll say something about that. Is like, we need to be more creative. We need to be creative and talk about person-centered approach. You know, how can we help those? Because everyone doesn't learn the same way. So, you know, how can we get all these other resources into the system, like how Dominguez was talking about before, about music, about dance. There's a lot of different things that could be inside the institutions to help the incarcerated and to help them get better and understand who they are and what they're going to be doing when they get out of prison. So there's way more things that the DOC could do to be creative. Creativity is the most important thing.
And then another question, Ricardo and Jen. So both of you talked about sharing your art with your kids. And so if you're comfortable, can you share the impact of that? It seems like such a profound way to stay connected and communicate with your kids.
Go ahead, Jen.
I know that it meant the world to my oldest. She's got trauma because of the trouble I had caused in her life leading up to my incarceration, and then again my incarceration. And so every piece of art that I sent her, she hanged up on her wall. And I had sent home big paintings, and then I used oil pastels, and I sent drawings that I had worked on for hours. And I had a friend of mine take pictures of her bedroom, and I just see all of these pieces of my art hanging up on her wall. And having your 19-year-old daughter have artwork like that you made for her hanging on her wall like a 5-year-old child would do, it just means the world. I talk to my daughter on a daily basis now. She's forgiven me for everything I did to her over the years. We have a very close relationship, and I feel like all of the art I had sent home over the several years now has really made an impact on her. It meant the world to her. It really does. It does. It means the world to your children. It's no words can really explain what art does. And when you do art with your children, when you're able to do art with your children, like I would do pieces of art that I didn't finish, and I would have them finish the art and they would hang it up on the fridge. And that meant a lot to them too, that they were able to do art with me still. That was pretty cool. It was a way that they were still able to connect with me.
That's awesome. My kids, they are really my inspiration, my muse. Yeah, everything that I really do and I've sent home, just like Jen, my kids have it all over their bedroom walls. So you can see the transition from when I first started to recently when I got released. Just the quality of it and just the pride in their voices when they see something that I've done. And my kids got to go to the exhibit at the Creator Space downtown St. Paul for the first exhibit, the numbers one, and they loved it. It was awesome. They got to stand right next to my paintings at the exhibit, and not many kids get to say that about their dads that just got out of prison. While I was still in prison, they were visiting my art at the exhibit. So that was just life-changing right there for me. And it was just motivation, inspiration for everything. You know what I mean? My kids, they're my life. They're my world. You know what I mean? They're everything to me. And yeah, I can still see it. When I walked out of prison, I had 4 paintings in my hand. That was, and my legal work. That was it. That's all I left prison with. Went straight to Michael's, got a Marilyn Monroe framed for my daughter that I painted and put it on her wall. So stuff like that, my kids will never forget that. They'll never forget that. And those are the kind of memories that you have to create when you're incarcerated, because we're not allowed to be at birthday parties. We're not allowed to be there during soccer tournaments, basketball, football, what have you. So the little small gestures, the piece of art from their parents just means so much to both of us, for us as the parents and for them as the children, because we're maintaining that contact and that relationship. And even though we are away and we are incarcerated, that lets them know that we still love them and we're still thinking about them. And yeah, it's just really good for both relationships, for the parents and the children.
Antonio, is there, you also have a lot of relationships with artists. What is some of that, like, if anything, if there's anything that you're comfortable sharing, some of those like personal connection points, like Jen and Ricardo just talked about, that you have observed with the other folks that you're in relationship with?
Man, it's like the community, when they come to these exhibits and they look at this art and they ask questions and they're surprised and they see how the talent that these individuals have is too much. It's right now, I'm at the museum right now, and there's 2 families here from the artists. So I'm like waiting, they're waiting for me to talk to them after this conversation. You can see the excitement in their faces and everything else. I miss the excitement. I miss the excitement to see the, going into a unit and having guys come out from the, from the cell and come down to the flag and show me their art, you know what I'm saying? And say, hey, what do you think about this? I want to put this in your art show. I miss that, I think that really helped me so much when I was working there. It gave me purpose. I had purpose going to work, because I knew that they were excited about something and I was going to give them some sort of information. We collaborated that way. And those were special moments for me. And that's how I communicated with these folks. And I'm hoping that it happens again. And I'm hoping that Art from the Inside could expand and do bigger things than what we're doing right now. I mean, we had the Weisman, so so it's like we had a museum. Come on, you know what I'm saying? Like, these guys, you guys are in the archives of a museum, with your art here. So I'm excited for them, and I'm excited for Art from the Inside.
I want to thank all of the questions that have come through the Q&A right now. Those are fantastic. And please keep them coming. What I'm going to do now is is to show another brief clip from the documentary before we move into the sort of final questions that I have, but I'm happy to replace all of them with anything that anybody puts in, because they're so wonderful. So just 1 minute while I again do the awkward thing of sharing my screen.
it's kind of a surprise sometimes what these guys get out of it, and I don't probably talk to them enough about it. Just the other day talking about when we come in and we learn elements and principles, they've told me that they start to see the world differently after learning about those things, and I know what they mean because I do it too. You start to look at how objects, how you might paint something, how you might draw something. Some of these guys have never done any art before. To see, they go from 0 to 100. This guy that sits here, he was just telling me yesterday how he sends his work home and his family is just thrilled to see what he's doing, you know, from not doing anything to this. And to hear somebody say that they see the world differently, you know, that's kind of a big thing.
And art showed me that, yes, it projects your pain, it communicates what you're feeling, but now how do you use that and express it with people? So he also guided me or pushed me towards learning better communication skills, to be able to create a dialogue or some form of rapport with some of the people in here, you know, that work here and are living here. So that's what I discovered, that I'm very capable of that.
You know, it's even better because it's focusing, it's monotasking, it's just doing one thing. You get to shut everything else out. When you're focused and you're concentrating on that line or that curve, whatever it is that you're creating, you get to quiet all of this stuff in your head that's telling you what, you know, whatever it's telling you, you know, and I mean, that's just the neuroscience on that, right? That allows you to monotask and to quiet things, and you learn to sit with yourself, and you learn the value of being thoughtful and slow. And you know, maybe you didn't learn that as a child. Maybe life is too crazy to be able to be able to think about being still and quiet. Maybe you needed to be on guard all the time, and you know, maybe there wasn't enough food and it wasn't safe or whatever. But that art gives you the chance to really sit and focus your brain and let all the rest go away. And when you learn how to do that, that's when doors get to open for you about thinking, you know, thoughts that are helpful. You know, what do I need to do? And maybe I do have something going on here, and maybe I can change. I think it's finding that place where, you know, where okay, is this me or is this something? And or is this something I did?
I'm not going to be somebody who's going to be like, well, I'm not going to forget about my past or forget about the mistakes that I have. That's still part of my narrative. I'm an inmate artist. I'm still an artist, but that's informed by me being an inmate also. But at least I'm not just an inmate. I'm still that artist also.
Incredibly important, just to be seen for something other than your history, other than your record.
Some aren't ever going to leave, so to let them know there are ways to make a difference when you're here without even having to be outside the walls, through their artwork, through their writing, through whatever it may be. There's ways to help other people no matter where you're at.
It changes the climate in a unit. You imagine how one negative person can come into a room and just, you know, affect the energy in the room. Or a positive person could walk into an environment where everybody's just, you know, like what's this guy so happy for? It has an effect. And the more that you can create positive energy, the more that you can create energy where, you know, in conversation where guys are saying, hey, what are you doing? Like, hey man, I'm in here drawing. They're like, here's some, and give, you know, I give guys art supplies. Here's some paper and some pencils. Here, do this. You know, you're able to it has a ripple effect. Now, this guy's friends or maybe guys near him and it's so like, what are you doing in there? Oh, I'm just drawing,
yeah. So we spent a lot of time in the last conversation sort of talking about the lack of programming and the lack of availability of doing art in prison. And then we had that we had that teacher there talking about what he's seen. Can that be contextualized for our audience a little bit? From anyone here who can speak to it, like what is the experience of working in that space, in that studio, just to kind of make that connection, since we spent so much time talking about it.
I'll go. I was definitely in that classroom. I spent a few years in that classroom. The teacher, Jeff Guzzi, he's a really good guy, and he really cares about the students. He lets you be creative. If you want to paint, he'll let you paint. And if you want to do oil, he'll let you do oil, watercolors. That opportunity right there is so imperative. But the problem with that is there's only 15 seats in the classroom, and there's over 1,200, 1,500 inmates in Stillwater. So what do the rest of the guys do? You know what I mean? And if you go to SAG, if you go to the hole, unfortunately, you got to wait another 6 months to get back into the art room. So it's kind of like a prime position to be in the art room. It's really it's a privilege. So most of the guys in there can draw, but then there's a double-sided edged sword, because the other guys in the prison, they don't have the art supplies, and yeah, they don't have the opportunity. So they do it in their room. But just like Jen was saying, Shakopee, they definitely need programming. All the prisons in Minnesota, we need more programming. We just do. Faribault and Lino Lakes, they have music rooms where you can actually go in there, record music, make music. That's very good. They have an incentive, so you can't get in trouble. To be able to sign up, you got to be trouble-free. So that keeps things mellow, and keeps the incentive up. Could give them something to look forward to, going in the studio and rapping or singing, whatever they want to do. But it's good. We need more stuff like that. We need more opportunities for guys in there, whether they're getting out or not. Because why would you want to just leave somebody in a box without anything? That's never going to go good. That situation is not going to go good. If you give somebody an opportunity to do something better with themselves, that is going to go good, because you're putting more positive energy into the world instead of beating us down or calling us felons and labeling us, because we're not that. We are felons, and we did make mistakes, but we're more than that. We're human beings, and some of us are using this art to change our lives. You know what I mean? And we just need more opportunities in there for the guys and the women to just better themselves, because right now there's a huge disparity between just idle time and the lack of programming in the prisons right now. So I think it's imperative to get everybody on board. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, we're coming home to Minnesota to live right next door to you. You know what I mean? Do you want a guy living next to you that doesn't have any skills and didn't learn anything in prison positive, and all he knows is how to do is rob and steal cars? Or you want a guy that went in there and had an opportunity, was given the opportunity for programming, and now he has a skill, and now he's a productive member of society? That's what we need. That's what we're asking for. And we've been asking for that in prison. When we talk to the warden, we talk to the program director, we need this stuff. But it all comes down to the big wigs, to the big guys, to people with the money. We don't control that. So until that changes, or until we get some movement with that, we're going to keep having these conversations.
And Jen, I know that was a really specific space that was highlighted in the documentary, and you made some comments about the lack of availability of resources there. How did you create art? Where were you able to do it? You mentioned kind of in your cell, but were there any other spaces?
No, there weren't. I drew in my cell. I was in a PFA, which is an academy that you can apply to be in. Not everybody can be in PFA, though. They choose you, and then if you are eligible to become part of PFA, then there's 800 hours of programming that you have to dedicate your time for. And then parts of the programming that are available to you, they bring in some art, but that's very little parts of that programming. There was a couple times where there was a few ladies that brought in watercolors, and so we did watercolors, and there was one other time that they brought in acrylics, And then I said that we did the trauma class that was through PFA as well. And that teacher, Miss Hale, she brought in drawing paper and pencils. Otherwise, I did all of my art. I bought my own art supplies, and I bought my own paper, and I bought my own pencils, the graphite pencils on the canteen and the drawing pad on canteen.
So you talked about this a little bit. One of the questions in the Q&A I'm curious if anyone has worked with an art therapist during their incarceration and how they think that would affect their progress, mental health, or overall well-being. Jen, you talked about the trauma class, which sounds like a really specific, where there was like a specific action. Were there any other opportunities, or Ricardo, did you have any kind of interactions like that?
Yes. And it all falls down to, before this incident in 2018, Stillwater was literally, it was a functioning prison. It was good. We had basketball tournaments, handball tournament. We were moving. It was good. It was programming. We did the AVP, it's an alternative to violence program, and they asked us to think of a time when before we did a violent act and what were we thinking in our head. And they wanted us to draw the opposite thought of our reaction. So everybody got to draw what their alternative to violence would be. And mine, I just drew musical notes with a couple little, or half of the keyboard in there at an angle, because I love music. And I'd rather listen to a song than do what I did, get in a fight or whatever. But the alternative to violence program, they have AVP, Thinking for a Change. All of that was taken away for the COVID and for the incident that happened in 2018. So right now, Stillwater is actually they're on like modified lockdown status. So them guys need some programming. But yeah, we did have that in there, but as of right now, that's not available.
When it comes down to art therapists, I don't know very much about it, but because of this program or this project that I've been doing, I met two therapists who use art, and they were very happy to know that this was happening and wanted to be on board. And I believe that we could utilize art therapists in the prison system to have these conversations with the incarcerated and try to soften and find out where the help could come in and find some healing within the conversations where a lot of the assaults and everything else that's happening within the department will stop. And like how Dominguez said, we need more programming. And I think more programming and keeping people occupied and keeping them with hope and keeping them with good behavior will change.
So I have, at least on my kind of list, one final question that I'm going to ask the same question to both Jen and Ricardo, which you talked about sort of what is needed. And some of these things are big, right? They're things that require specific action taken by specific people in specific positions. And then we have all the folks that are here with us this evening. And so I'm going to ask you what you both hope people feel as a part of this conversation we had, and what action do you hope people take when they see your work, when they leave this conversation, when they go to the Weisman, which everybody's going to do, and see the work of your fellow artists? What do you hope they feel, and what do you hope they do?
Go ahead, Jen.
I mean, that's a good question. What would I hope somebody would take from this experience in general? That we exist, that there are people that are still behind those prison walls and they exist, and they are not just a number, that they're talented and they're beautiful and they feel just like any other human being. And it's not fair that they continue to be ignored. And I hope that the beauty in this art shows that we deserve to be heard.
I agree. I definitely agree. What I would like for everybody that's at the museum, at the exhibit, I would like for them to realize that what they're looking at, a person created that in a place that was designed to break you, which is prison, because it is. I'll just say what it is. Prison is not a good place. Prison is when you're stripped of everything, your family, your freedom. So when you get to create something and when you're giving guys the opportunities to see this on the walls of the Weisman Museum, that honor right there is so gratifying to these guys. To me, to Jen, it's just to Espinosa, this has just been such an honor. And I want people to realize that we're people. We made mistakes. We had issues in our past, but we can learn from that. We can move on from that. And everybody needs a second chance. Everybody deserves opportunities. And right now, I think that we're getting the opportunities and we're taking some good steps towards getting some changes made. And hopefully in the future, we can get more art in there and the community can get behind us and start talking to their congressmen, legislators for more funding for the prisons. That would be awesome. But that's what we need. We really need that.
And Elaine, I have a different question for you, which is what can and should institutions like the University of Minnesota or the Weisman do?
Thanks, Ingrid. So I think the most important thing that institutions like the U or the White or any museum can do is to recognize the influence of context more, because just like I had mentioned how art creates a context in which the artist gets to be free or feel differently and be someone other than they are in everyday life. The museum context creates a space where we get to temporarily occupy the role of a visitor. We can be receptive. We can connect in a way that maybe we aren't able to connect in our ordinary lives when it's stressful or we have our own worries and concerns, and we're not able to listen and feel inspired to take action. And so something that we know from, for example, health communication or climate behavior communication, it's really hard to get people to follow through on their intentions, and people need help getting motivated to take action. So institutions like the Weisman or the U can make things more explicit. So give visitors even more concrete ideas about steps they can take in the community, give them links and resources and information that people today have already been asking about. So what are real actions that you can take when you're at home or you get off work and you're really tired? Or how can you notice an opportunity in your workplace or in your social life or in your community to do more? And remember that people coming out of incarceration could use more support, more mentoring and compassion. So just kind of how can you tap into your emotions when you're in one context, like the museum or in this event, and when you're in a very different context, when you have an opportunity to take action, but it might be less convenient, or it might feel hard and different from how we feel today when we're so inspired by Ricardo and Jennifer's testimony.
And Antonio, what are the possibilities from the inside that you're still exploring, and what do you hope comes next? What action do you hope comes next from this project?
I'm hoping for more action than words. I would love to see more involvement with outside resources coming in and bringing some good stuff into the system to help this population of people. It just, you gotta be creative. You have to be creative and not be scared to make a move. It's hard. It's a hard thing prison is not easy. It's not easy to influence people to change. Changes work. Change hurts, and it's the work. And you have to be vulnerable to change, and you have to be vulnerable to look at things in a different way, because what we've been doing all along hasn't been working. So we have to make a pivot and try to do something different in servicing these incarcerated folks. So my hopes are for change and to be courageous and to just be, think about the humanity that we all have in this whole thing, because like how Dominguez said, 90% of these people come out and, they come back out into our communities. What are we going to do? What are we doing to do something positive while they're in prison? And how are we going to do something more powerful, more positive for them when they're out here in our community? So I'm hoping that the commissioner and those people who are able to make these moves could make the moves.
And Ricardo and Jennifer, I want to make sure that you check the chat. There's some, if you haven't looked at it already, there's some really nice call outs there to you. And I'm gonna end with giving you all a big thanks from me and Just Education for coming together with us. Time is precious, commitments are many, and having you all here tonight has been wonderful. Elaine, thank you so much for doing this in addition to teaching me a fabulous class. Antonio, thank you for your partnership in making this happen. After 2 years of talking about it, we finally pulled it off. And with that, I will hand it over to my other partner, Brian. Boris, thank you for letting us join you at the Weisman.
Thank you so much to everyone. I would like to add a little bit to one of the last questions about what museum can do. I believe museums can start recognizing artists who are incarcerated as professional artists, as active contributors and part of creative community. And not only promote art that is created in prison, but also support production of new art by incarcerated artists in the same way that museums know how to support production of new art by artists on the outside. It's a big challenge, but I believe this is what museums should learn how to do. Thank you again to everyone. Thank you to panelists, and thank you to all the artists. It's a real honor to have you at the Weisman. Thank you to Just Education and Art from the Inside for producing this event and for curating this amazing exhibition. And thank you to everyone for being with us here today. Please come visit the exhibit at the Weisman. It's there until Sunday night. Please also consider responding to the surveys that you're going to receive from us by email. They help us make these programs better. Thank you again, and good night.